Welcome back to ATL Day Ones. I am Tenitra Batiste. This is Jarvis Davis, and we appreciate you guys for continuing to check us out, especially subscribing on YouTube, up to 1,400 subscribers. We appreciate you continuing to give us likes and follows and let other people know about this great podcast. And also, wherever you download audio versions of your podcast, check us out there. But when you do, make sure you leave a 5-star review to tell us how much you love what it is that we do. Now, Jarvis, speaking of love, or in this case, maybe love hate,
Yeah. Hmm.
the NBA released its all NBA teams on Tuesday night, right? So you get your
Hmm.
first team, your second team, and your third team. And the Hawks own all NBA third team selection, Trae Young. Now, good news is, hadn't happened in over a decade. The last time that happened for the Hawks, that is, was back in 2010, 2011 with Al Horford. So that's saying
Spend some
something.
time. Yeah. Hmm.
Exactly. That's definitely an accolade that we don't take lightly, right? And I know
Right.
Trae Young doesn't take the accolade lightly because hey, that's $35 million, a $35 million guaranteed bag that your brother took away. So good thing
Hmm.
for him. But my first thought was, oh, is that a good thing for the Hawks? Because $35 million, are we around here kind of shaking things up with as it relates to your luxury tax and their ability to go after any free agents. But again, when I looked up the numbers, Jarvis, and I said, okay, there will still be an 8% increase to where you can go as far as that luxury tax is this summer. So I'm not as concerned as I was even when we spoke about it this morning. But I do have some concerns about some things that just really made me go, hmm. And of course, the conversation around here is about Trae and whether or not being placed on that third team was accurate. Do you see that there's some bias there, or does this give more Dallas won the trade fuel to that particular fire? So that's one of the questions I have. I have thoughts on whether or not that third team placement for Trae is accurate, or whether or not, as you mentioned in the segment before, there's some bias. But I'm going to step back a moment with my thoughts and get your thoughts on Trae getting selected for the third team All NBA.
You know what? Only person I can really maybe take a look at it and
Mm,
even consider moving off of that is probably a guy like John Morant. But
yes,
it's so hard to
very.
do that because, like I said, when I talk, I talked about the hype machine, right? The hype
Hmm.
machine was
I
behind
did.
John Morant. It got behind him, and once that NBA talking heads get behind it, it's nothing you can do about it because
Yeah,
the man can drop 50 and 15 every night, and they won't care because they
right.
are. A lot of the times they look at it from a standpoint of, okay, yeah, if you're that great, why aren't you winning games, or why are
Yeah,
you in part of the play-in tournament?
yes.
Those type
Yep.
things, and I think that that I kind of understand it, but I don't because here's
Hmm.
why. These are individual accolades, right?
Sure.
If you take, Ja Morant off of the Memphis Grizzlies, can they win some games? Yeah,
Yeah,
we
and they
saw
did
it.
it
And they did do
over
it,
and
and they
over
did it in the
again.
playoffs. You know what I mean? So, but if you take Trae Young off of the Hawks, then you got nothing
Yeah,
essentially.
yeah.
So I think for that reason, if we kind of simplifying this thing down to okay, a one for one type situation, which is how they did it,
Hmm.
from a selection standpoint,
Yeah.
I think that that's the one thing I can point to and say, all right,
Hmm.
if we're talking about bringing a team aspect into this guy,
Right.
I think if you're talking about the most valuable player
Hmm.
for their squad,
Yeah.
I definitely will say that would have to be Trae Young, and
Hmm.
that's a spot that you can probably move Ja down to a third team and maybe
Yeah.
jump Trae up to the second team.
True.
But as far as improving the roster, as far as with the big boy bump that he got, I don't think that necessarily will hinder what the Hawks
No,
are trying to do,
nor do
right?
I.
Because whoever they bring in, they're gonna have to
Hmm.
trade for. They're gonna have to
Yeah.
trade for
No
that
question.
person. Like they can't keep. They're gonna have to do addition by subtraction. We've talked about that ever since that final game in Miami. You know what I mean? So we talked about how they're willing to go into the luxury tax, but they're gonna have to subtract some guys off of this
Yeah.
roster in order
Agreed.
for them to get better. Because maybe a 2-for-1 deal, maybe even a 3-for-1, however the money works out or the
Hmm.
financials work out. I
Yeah.
think that's what it's going to do. So I think that you know shout out to Trey getting his bread. I don't think it's gonna hinder anything that what the Hawks trying to do. And
Right.
yeah, man, like, can we just look at the basketball aspect of it? Can we
Yeah,
not look at the hype? You know what I mean? So, but at the end of the day,
yeah,
Trae is an All NBA player, and
yes,
I think that's the he's one of the best players in the NBA,
yeah.
and for that reason, I don't think that people should shut their mouths about
Hmm.
oh the Hawks lost this trade. Come on, man.
Right. Well, yeah, and it's very difficult. Like you said, when you look across the names of the guards who were selected, when you look at Luka Doncic, when you look at Ja Morant, when you look
Yeah,
at Devin Booker, when
right.
you look at Steph Curry, it's very difficult to say, okay, well, who would you replace him with? Because that's really what it would be in this situation. It would most definitely be addition by subtraction. And it would be very difficult based on all of the things that you just mentioned for that group of NBA writers and voters to take him off the list
Right.
and bump him up and bump someone else down with John Morant, probably the only one who you may be able to give logic to. Because if you look back at the regular season and what Doncic was able to do for his team, we obviously know what Steph Curry means to the Warriors, but also what he means across this league, period. I mean, this was another record setting year for this guy. So you can't take away from that. And Devin Booker coming off being a part of a key reason that the Suns were the number one overall seed going into the postseason. So
With
again,
Chris Paul being hurt, so yeah, that's
exactly,
understandable.
there you
Yeah.
go. So it's very, very difficult to see a space where he would one up anybody to maybe make it to second team or first team. And then you think about another two other difficult caveats to it. When you look at the fact that there were some voters who actually left John Morant off the NBA ballot, period. That tells you how difficult this thing is. And then
Right.
you look at the fact that DeMar DeRozan was left off a couple ballots. And the Bulls at one point were the number one seed in the Eastern Conference.
Yep.
So it's very difficult. And Trey did get, by the way, some votes for second team as well. Didn't get any votes for first team, but again, understandable because who do you leapfrog to get there? Some did leave him off their ballots as well, like 12 balloters, if you will. But here's the other thing, Jarvis, that I think is actually even a bigger conversation than, hey, does this give more fuel to the fire, of the Luca and the Dallas folks getting the better of the trade? Well, number one, you still can't say that because what are you going to say tomorrow when the Warriors dead the Mavs? Because that's what they're going to do. Uh,
Yes.
yeah. So and just like you say, Trae Young was neutralized in the Miami Heat series. Okay, yeah, Luka's gotten 40 here and there, but he's pretty much been neutralized in this series as well. The NBA actually has a competition issue that it needs to look at because if positions are hybrid and we pretty much have swings on the 2, 3, and 4, you may need to, instead of categorizing it by just okay, straight shooting guard, straight post, point guard, straight um, small forward, power forward,
Power
and
forward
center.
and center.
You may need to relook at how you get five on each team. You follow me? And instead of
Yeah.
relegating it to the position, you may need to reset and rethink that. Speaking of resetting and rethinking, whenever we need to drag for you, NFL, we will, like Jarvis and I, let you know what our thoughts were about what you're trying to do allegedly with expanding the Rooney Rule. But there's one thing that you've done in these May owner meetings that we think actually has some legs to stand on in your efforts to expand and evolve your diversity efforts. We'll talk about it on the other side. Look for the culture.